The cards fell from Finn Ashford's trembling fingers, scattering across the ale-stained table as the full weight of what he had just done crashed over him like a winter storm. He had won, impossibly won, with a hand so lucky it defied belief. But the prize staring back at him from across the smoky tavern room was not gold or land or livestock. She was an orc woman, easily 6 feet tall, with emerald skin that caught the firelight, small tusks jutting from her lower jaw, and eyes the color of amber that blazed with such fury he could feel the heat of it from where he sat. "You cannot be serious," she said, her voice low and dangerous, each word enunciated with careful precision that suggested she was holding back something far more violent. "You would claim me like a sack of grain." The man who had wagered her, a grizzled merchant named Harlow with more debts than teeth, was already backing toward the door. "A bet is a bet, Korra. You agreed to the terms when I needed collateral for the game. The human won fair, and you are his now." Finn finally found his voice, though it came out higher and thinner than he would have liked. "Wait, I did not agree to this. I thought we were playing for your horse and cart. Read the contract, boy." Harlow tossed a crumpled parchment onto the table, before disappearing through the tavern door into the night, leaving Finn alone with a room full of hostile stares and one absolutely livid orc woman. Korra moved toward him with the fluid grace of a predator, and despite the fear making his heart hammer against his ribs, Finn could not help but notice she was beautiful in a way that defied every story he had ever been told about orcs. She wore simple traveling clothes, leather breeches, and a worn tunic that could not hide the athletic strength of her frame, and her dark hair was braided in an intricate pattern that must have taken hours to create. When she reached the table, she planted both hands on its surface and leaned close enough that he could smell leather and pine and something wild he could not name. "Listen carefully, human. I am not property. I am not a prize. I am a tracker and a hunter, and I have survived things that would break you like kindling. Whatever that bastard put on paper means nothing to me." "I agree completely," Finn said quickly, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "I did not want this. I did not even know he had wagered you until the cards were already down. Please, you are free to go. I want nothing from you." Something shifted in her expression, the fury banking slightly to reveal confusion beneath. "You would just let me walk away, of course. You are a person, not a possession. This whole situation is insane." The tavern keeper, a heavy-set woman named Marge who had been watching the exchange with the wariness of someone who had seen too many bar fights, cleared her throat. "Actually, there might be a problem with that." Both Finn and Korra turned to look at her. Marge gestured to the parchment still sitting on the table. "Harlow did this properly, got it witnessed and sealed by the trade magistrate. According to frontier law, she's legally bonded to you now as payment of debt. If she walks away, you are both in violation. She could be arrested as a runaway bondservant, and you could be charged with releasing contracted labor." "That is ridiculous," Finn said. "That is the law in these territories," Marge replied with a shrug. "Made to keep people from defaulting on debts. Nasty business, but it is what it is." Korra straightened, and Finn saw her hand drift toward the knife at her belt. "Then I will disappear into the forest. They will never find me." "They will," Marge said, not unkindly. "Not many orcs pass through these parts. You would stand out, and the magistrate has trackers of his own. They bring back runaways in chains." Finn felt sick. He had come to this backwater town looking for work, hoping to earn enough coin to buy seed for the small plot of land his father had left him. Instead, he had been talked into a card game by a friendly stranger, won against impossible odds, and now found himself legally bound to another person against both their wills. There has to be a way out of this, he said. There is, Marge said. Contract bondage can be dissolved by mutual agreement after a minimum term of service, payment of the debt that created the bond, or marriage between the parties. Marriage, Korra's voice could have cut glass. It is an old law, meant to protect women who were bonded against their will. If you marry, you become equals under the law and the contract is void. I am not marrying a human I just met, Korra said flatly. I am not suggesting you should, Finn said quickly. Look, what was the debt? How much did Harlow owe? Maybe I can work to pay it off and then the contract dissolves. Marge winced. He was in deep. 50 gold crowns, at least, would take you years of farm work to earn that much. Finn's stomach dropped. He had 3 silver pennies to his name. Korra turned away from the table, her shoulders rigid with tension. For a long moment, the only sound in the tavern was the crackle of the fire and the nervous shuffling of the other patrons, most of whom were trying very hard to pretend they were not listening to every word. Finally, she turned back. What is the minimum term of service? 3 months, Marge said. Fine, 3 months. I will fulfill this cursed contract for 3 months and then I am gone. But understand this, human, I am not your servant and I am not your prize. I will work beside you as an equal, or I will take my chances with the magistrate's trackers. Finn nodded immediately. Agreed. Equal partners, and at the end of 3 months we go our separate ways. I will draw up a written agreement tonight stating exactly that. You can write. Korra asked, surprise evident in her tone. My mother was a teacher. She made sure I learned before the fever took her. Something in Korra's expression softened just slightly. My mother taught me to track, before the humans killed her. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with old grief and the weight of the hatred that divided their peoples. Finn wanted to say he was sorry, wanted to explain that he had never killed anyone, orc or human, but he knew his words would sound hollow. His people had done this, had made her an orphan and left her vulnerable to men like Harlow who saw her as something to be used. I will get us a room, he said quietly. 2 beds. We can figure out what comes next in the morning. Marge provided them with a small room on the 2nd floor, and Finn made good on his promise, paying for 2 separate beds with the last of his coin. The room was cramped and smelled of old wood and mouse droppings, but it was clean enough and the beds looked sturdy. Korra stood by the window, staring out at the dark forest beyond the town, her back to him. Finn sat on one of the beds and pulled out a small journal and pencil from his pack, the only valuable things he owned. He began to write, carefully documenting the agreement they had made. 3 months of equal partnership, no servitude, no ownership, and at the end, freedom for them both. Why did you play cards if you could not afford to lose? Korra asked without turning around. I could not afford not to. I needed money for seed. My farm is barely 20 acres and the soil is rocky. Without a good crop, I will not make it through another winter. So you gambled your future on a hand of cards. I know it was stupid. But Harlow seemed like he was losing on purpose, and I thought maybe, just this once, luck would favor me. He laughed bitterly. I suppose it did, in the worst possible way. Korra finally turned to face him. In the candlelight, her features were softer, the anger that had defined her earlier replaced with exhaustion. How old are you, human? 22. My name is Finn, by the way. Finn Ashford, Korra Stonehide. I am 24 and I have been on my own since I was 16. I thought I was careful, thought I could trust Harlow to guide me through human territories in exchange for my hunting skills. Instead, he used me to clear his debts. I am sorry, Finn said, and meant it. She studied him for a long moment, her amber eyes searching his face for deception. You really did not know what you were playing for, did you? Not until it was too late. And for what it is worth, Even if there was no law involved, I would never have treated you like property. That is not who I am." "We will see," Korra said, but her tone was less hostile than before. "Read me what you wrote." Finn read the agreement aloud, and Korra listened carefully, occasionally asking him to clarify a point or add a detail. When he finished, she nodded. "I cannot write, but I can make my mark. We should both sign it." They did, and Finn folded the paper carefully and tucked it into his journal. It was not a legal document, but it was their word, and somehow that felt more important than anything a magistrate could enforce. Sleep did not come easily that night. Finn lay awake listening to Korra's breathing from the other bed, wondering how he was going to make this work. He had no money, barely any food, and now he had another person depending on him, whether either of them wanted it or not. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him like a physical thing. From the darkness, Korra's voice came soft and unexpected. "Thank you for not being what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone who would try to assert ownership. Someone who would see me as less than human." "You are not less than anything," Finn said. "You are just different, and from what I have seen tonight, you are probably braver and stronger than I will ever be." She did not respond, but he thought he heard a small, almost surprised intake of breath. Eventually, exhaustion claimed them both, and they slept. Morning came too soon, gray light filtering through the grimy window. Finn woke to find Korra already awake, sitting cross-legged on her bed and methodically checking her gear. She had a bow, a quiver of arrows, 2 hunting knives, and a small pack that looked like it held very little. "We should leave before the town wakes up properly," she said without preamble. "I do not like the way some of the men were looking at me last night." Finn could not argue with that. He gathered his own meager possessions, and they slipped out of the tavern while Marge was still banking the fires. The morning air was crisp and cold, promising the approach of autumn, and the dirt road leading out of town was empty save for a few chickens pecking at the ground. "Where is this farm of yours?" Korra asked as they walked. "About 15 miles north, near the edge of the ironwood forest. It is not much, just a small cabin and some cleared land, but it is mine." 15 miles is a full day's walk with packs. We should move." They set a steady pace, and Finn found himself grateful for Korra's presence, despite the strange circumstances. The road was known to be dangerous, with bandits and wild animals a constant threat, and having someone who could actually fight beside him was a comfort his pride would not let him voice. As they walked, Korra seemed to relax slightly, her stride becoming easier, her eyes constantly scanning the forest around them with the practiced attention of someone used to living in the wild. She moved differently than the humans Finn knew, with a fluid economy of motion that suggested she was always ready to react, always prepared for danger. "How long were you with Harlow?" Finn asked after they had covered several miles. 2 weeks. "He found me at the border market, said he needed a guide and hunter for a trading expedition through the frontier. The pay was good and I needed the work. I should have known it was too good to be true." "Where were you going before all this?" She was quiet for a moment and Finn thought she might not answer. Then she said, "Nowhere. Everywhere. My clan cast me out for helping a human child who was lost in our territory. They said I was a traitor to our people. So I have been wandering, taking work where I can find it, trying to stay ahead of trouble. You saved a child and they punished you for it. My people have long memories. We remember every village burned, every hunting ground stolen, every orc killed for sport by human soldiers. Showing mercy to humans is seen as weakness, as betrayal. But that child was maybe 5 years old, crying and bleeding from a fall. I could not just leave her to die." Finn felt a surge of respect for this woman he barely knew. She had sacrificed everything to do what was right, and the world had rewarded her with exile and bondage. For what it is worth, I think you did the right thing. That does not change what happened. No, but it says something about who you are, something good. She glanced at him, and he thought he saw the ghost of a smile touch her lips before she turned back to the road. They stopped at midday to rest and eat, sharing the small amount of food Finn had in his pack. It was not much, some hard bread and dried meat, but Korra supplemented it with berries she found growing along the roadside, testing each one carefully before declaring them safe. "You know plants?" Finn asked. "I know what will feed you and what will kill you. It is a necessary skill when you live on the move. Maybe you could teach me. I know enough to grow crops, but foraging is not something I learned much about." She looked surprised. "You want me to teach you? Why not? You clearly know things I do not, and I could use all the help I can get if I am going to keep that farm running. What will you do with me while you work your land?" The question was cautious, probing. "Work it together, I suppose. I cannot pay you in coin, but I can give you half of whatever we grow or hunt. At the end of 3 months, you will have food stores to take with you, and I will have had help that might actually let me survive the season." Korra considered this, her expression thoughtful. "You would share your harvest equally. You would be doing equal work. It only seems fair." She shook her head slowly, as if marveling at something. "You are either the most honest man I have ever met or the most naive." "Probably both," Finn admitted. "My father used to say I was too trusting for my own good, but I would rather be honest and naive than cruel and clever." "Your father sounds like he was a good man." "He was. He died 3 years ago trying to clear a field during a lightning storm. A tree fell on him." Finn looked away, the grief still fresh even after all this time. "I buried him under the oak tree near the cabin. He always liked that spot. I am sorry." Korra's voice was gentle, and when Finn looked at her, he saw genuine sympathy in her eyes. "Losing a parent is hard, no matter what species you are." They sat in companionable silence for a while after that, and Finn realized with some surprise that he was starting to feel comfortable around her. The initial fear and awkwardness was giving way to something else, a tentative connection forged from shared loss and uncertain circumstances. The afternoon brought clouds and the threat of rain, and they picked up their pace, hoping to reach the farm before the storm broke. Finn's legs were aching by the time the familiar landmarks came into view. The old stone marker that denoted the boundary of his land, the split pine tree that had been struck by lightning years ago. As they crested the final hill, his cabin came into sight, small and weather-worn but still standing. "This is it," he said, unable to keep the mix of pride and apprehension from his voice. "Home." Korra surveyed the property with a critical eye. The cabin was single-roomed, built from rough-hewn logs with a stone chimney on one end. Behind it stretched 20 acres of partially cleared land, some of it planted with struggling crops, much of it still wild. A small barn that leaned slightly to one side stood near the tree line, and Finn could see that the fence he had been mending before he left had fallen down again. "It needs work," Korra said. "Everything needs work. I have been trying to manage it alone for 3 years, and I am barely keeping my head above water." She nodded, her expression neutral. "Show me inside." The cabin was sparse but clean. A single bed occupied one corner, a rough-hewn table and 2 chairs sat near the fireplace, and open shelves held his meager supplies. A ladder led up to a small loft space that Finn had been using for storage. "I will take the loft," Korra said immediately. "You keep the bed. Are you sure? It is dusty up there, and there is no proper floor, just boards. I have slept in worse places. At least it is dry and has a roof." Finn wanted to argue, but he could see the set of her jaw and knew it would be pointless. Instead, he said, I will clean it out properly tonight and get some blankets up there. It gets cold this time of year. They spent the rest of the afternoon securing the cabin before the rain came. Finn showed Korra around the property, pointing out what he had accomplished and what still needed doing. The list of the latter was depressingly long. The barn needed repairs, the fields needed weeding and probably would not yield much. The well was getting low, and he was down to his last handful of preserves for the winter. "How have you survived this long?" Korra asked, and there was no judgment in the question, only genuine curiosity. Stubbornness, mostly, and the kindness of neighbors, though there are not many out here. Old Cather, who lives about 5 miles east, sometimes trades vegetables for help with her livestock, and the Dunn family to the south occasionally needs an extra hand during harvest. But you cannot ask them for help now. Why not? Korra gave him a look that was half incredulous, half amused. Because you have an orc living with you. That will not sit well with human neighbors. Finn opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. She was right, of course. Prejudice against orcs ran deep, and even his friendly neighbors would likely view Korra as a threat, or, at best, a dangerous oddity. The reality of their situation was starting to sink in. Not only did they have to work together, they would have to do it largely isolated from the surrounding community. The rain began as they were hauling water from the well, fat drops that quickly became a steady downpour. They ran for the cabin, both of them soaked by the time they got inside. Finn built up the fire while Korra wrung out her hair, water streaming from the long braid. I have some extra clothes, Finn offered. They will be too small, but at least they are dry. I will be fine. These will dry by the fire. But she was shivering, and Finn could see her trying to hide it. He pulled out an old shirt of his father's, one of the few things he had kept, and held it out. Please, my father was a big man. It might actually fit you. Korra hesitated, then took the shirt. Turn around. Finn turned to face the wall, listening to the rustle of wet fabric and trying very hard not to think about the fact that there was a woman undressing just a few feet away. When she said he could turn back, he found her wearing his father's old work shirt, which did indeed fit her reasonably well, hanging to mid-thigh over her damp breeches. Thank you, she said quietly. They hung her wet tunic by the fire and settled in for the evening. Finn made a simple stew from his remaining supplies, and they ate in silence, the rain drumming steadily on the roof. It was strange having another person in the cabin after so long alone. The space felt smaller, more intimate, and Finn found himself hyper-aware of Korra's presence, the way she moved, the small sound she made. After dinner, he climbed up to the loft and worked to clear it out properly, sweeping away dust and cobwebs, laying down extra boards to create a more solid floor. Korra watched from below, and when he climbed back down, she said, "You did not have to do all that." "Yes, I did. This is your home, too, for the next 3 months at least. You should be comfortable." He gave her 2 of his 3 blankets and his spare pillow, ignoring her protests. That night, as he lay in his bed listening to her settle into the loft above, Finn realized that his life had irrevocably changed. He had gone looking for an opportunity and found a responsibility instead. But as he thought about the woman upstairs, the fierce orc who had been treated as property and had still managed to maintain her dignity, he found he did not regret it. This was complicated and difficult and possibly doomed to failure, but it felt right in a way he could not quite articulate. From above, Korra's voice drifted down. "Finn?" "Yes. Tomorrow, let me hunt. Your supplies are too low and the forest here is rich. I can bring back meat and check the land at the same time." "That would be helpful, thank you. We are partners now, even if only for 3 months, Partners help each other. Partners. The word settled over him like a blanket. Yes, we are. Good night, Korra. Good night. The rain continued through the night, and Finn drifted off to the sound of it, feeling less alone than he had in years. Morning brought clear skies and the sharp scent of wet earth. Finn woke to find Korra already gone, her blankets neatly folded in the loft. A note written in crude letters sat on the table, clearly laboriously composed. Hunting. Back before dark. He spent the day working on the fence, repairing the sections that had fallen and reinforcing the posts. It was hard, monotonous work, but necessary if he wanted to keep animals out of what was left of his crops. His mind kept wandering to Korra, wondering if she was safe, if she would actually come back. The cynical part of him whispered that this would be the perfect chance for her to disappear into the forest and never be seen again. But as the sun began to dip toward the horizon, he heard her call from the tree line. She emerged carrying 2 rabbits and a small deer slung across her shoulders, moving under the weight with an ease that spoke of considerable strength. "Good hunting?" Finn asked, trying to hide his relief at seeing her return. "Very good." The deer was young and foolish, and the rabbits practically walked into my snares. She laid the animals out near the cabin. "Do you know how to dress game? My father taught me the basics." "Good. I will teach you the rest." They worked together as the light faded, Korra showing him techniques for preserving the meat, for using every part of the animal, for treating the hides so they could be turned into useful leather. Her hands were quick and sure, the movements practiced from years of experience, and Finn found himself fascinated by her competence. "Where did you learn all this?" he asked as they worked. "My mother, mostly. She was the best hunter in our clan. She could track a deer across stone and bring down a bear with a single arrow." Korra's voice was soft with memory. "She taught me everything, said that an orc who could not feed herself was already dead." "She sounds formidable." She was. The humans who killed her learned that too late. She took 5 of them down before they got her. There was pain in Korra's voice, but also pride. "I am sorry you lost her that way. I am sorry your father died alone, crushed by a tree." She met his eyes. "Life is cruel to everyone, human and orc alike. The difference is in how we survive it." They finished dressing the game as full darkness fell, and Finn felt a sense of accomplishment he had not experienced in a long time. With Korra's help, he now had enough meat to last weeks, maybe even months if they were careful with preservation. It was not just the food, though. It was the partnership, the shared labor, the growing ease between them. Over dinner, Korra said, "I scouted the borders of your land while I was out. You have good water access, and the southern section has rich soil that is not being used. If we clear it and plant winter crops, we could significantly increase your yield. That would take weeks of work. We have 3 months, and you cannot afford not to use every advantage you have." She was right, of course. Finn nodded. "Then that is what we will do. We will clear the southern section together." "Together," Korra echoed, and something in the way she said it made his chest tighten. The days that followed fell into a rhythm. They would wake early, share a quick breakfast, then divide the work according to their strengths. Korra hunted and scouted while Finn tended the existing crops and worked on repairs. In the afternoons, they would tackle the southern section together, clearing brush and pulling stumps, the work brutal and exhausting but satisfying in its progress. Finn learned quickly that Korra was not just strong. She was incredibly strong, able to move logs and rocks that would have taken him hours to shift. But she never made him feel inadequate for his lesser strength. Instead, they found ways to complement each other, Korra providing the muscle while Finn applied leverage and planning. They talked as they worked, sharing stories from their pasts, slowly building a picture of each other's lives. Finn learned that Korra had a younger brother she had not seen since her exile, that she loved thunderstorms and hated the taste of fish, that she had always wanted to see the ocean but had never had the chance. Korra learned that Finn had briefly studied at a university before his father died, and he had to return home, that he played a battered old fiddle he kept hidden under his bed, that he dreamed of one day having a real farm with proper buildings, and maybe even a few apprentices to help work the land. "Why do you stay here?" Korra asked one afternoon as they took a break, both of them sweating despite the cool air. "You are educated. You could find easier work in a town. This land belonged to my family for 3 generations. My grandfather cleared the first fields, my father built the cabin, and I buried them both here. Leaving would feel like abandoning them. Even if staying means struggling every day just to survive, even then, some things are worth the struggle." Korra was quiet for a moment, then said, "I wish I had a place I felt that way about. Everywhere I go, I am just passing through, never belonging." "You belong here," Finn said without thinking, then immediately felt his face flush. "I mean, for now, while we are partners, this is your home too." She looked at him with an expression he could not quite read. "For 3 months. Right, 3 months." But as he said it, Finn realized with a jolt that he had stopped thinking about their arrangement as temporary. Somewhere in the past few weeks, he had started to think of Korra as a permanent fixture in his life, and the thought of her leaving at the end of their agreement left a hollow feeling in his chest. Autumn deepened, bringing cold winds and the first frost. The southern section was nearly cleared, and they had managed to plant a respectable crop of winter wheat and root vegetables. The cabin was warmer now that they had fixed the gaps in the walls, and their food stores were better than Finn could remember them being in years. But with the success came a new problem. Neighbors had started to notice the improvements to Finn's property, and some had come by to investigate. The reactions to Korra's presence ranged from shock to outright hostility. Old Cather, who had always been kind to Finn, took one look at Korra and declared that she would no longer be trading with him. "It is not natural, a human and an orc living together," she said, her face pinched with disapproval. "What would your father say?" The Dunn family was even worse. Harold Dunn showed up with 2 of his sons, both carrying rifles, and demanded to know why Finn was harboring an orc. "She is my partner," Finn said, standing his ground even though his heart was racing. "We work the land together." "Partner," Harold spat. "Boy, that is a monster. They killed my brother in the border wars. I should shoot her where she stands." Korra had been standing behind Finn, but at those words she stepped forward, placing herself between him and the armed men. "If you are going to shoot someone, shoot me, but know that I have never killed a human. I have saved them, healed them, and been punished by my own people for showing them mercy. Your hatred is your own burden to carry, not mine." The dignity in her voice, the absolute lack of fear, seemed to take Harold by surprise. He stared at her for a long moment, then lowered his rifle slightly. 3 months, he said, pointing at Finn. "That is how long until winter is truly here. If she is still on this land come spring, we will burn you out, both of you." They left, and Finn felt sick. He turned to Korra, meaning to apologize, but she was already walking back toward the cabin, her shoulders rigid with tension. He found her in the barn, checking on the preserved meat they had hung there. She did not look at him when he entered. "Korra, I am so sorry. I did not know they would react that way." "Yes, you did. You knew exactly how they would react. You just hoped you were wrong." Her voice was flat, emotionless. "This is why I do not stay anywhere long. This is why I am always moving. They had no right to threaten you. They had every right in their minds. I am an orc. We are the enemy. It does not matter what I have done or who I am. All they see is my green skin and my tusks, and they remember every story they have been told about my people. Finn moved closer carefully, as if approaching a wounded animal. I see more than that. I see someone brave and kind and strong. I see someone who works harder than anyone I have ever met. I see someone I am proud to call my partner. Korra finally turned to look at him, and he was shocked to see tears glistening in her amber eyes. You should not have to lose everything because of me. When the 3 months are up, I will leave. You can tell them I ran away, that you tried to stop me. Your neighbors will forgive you and you can go back to your life. What if I do not want to go back? The words came out before Finn could stop them, raw and honest. What if I want you to stay? The silence that followed was deafening. Korra stared at him, her expression shocked, vulnerable in a way he had never seen before. You do not mean that, she finally said. I do. These past weeks, working beside you, learning from you, they have been the best I have had since my father died. You make me want to be better, do better. You make me feel less alone. Finn, we are from different worlds. Even if we wanted this to work, the world would never allow it. Then we make our own world. Right here on this land. We build something together that is ours. Korra shook her head, but he could see the longing in her eyes, the desperate want to believe him. You would give up your neighbors, your community, your chance at a normal life. None of that means anything if I am alone, and I do not think I could go back to being alone, not after having you here. She took a step toward him, then stopped, clearly warring with herself. This is insane. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you are honest and loyal, and you saved a child at the cost of everything you had. I know you make me laugh and challenge me to be better, and you are the first thing I think about when I wake up. Finn took a breath, feeling like he was standing on the edge of a cliff. I know that I am falling in love with you, and I do not care if that is crazy or impossible or doomed. It is true. The tears spilled over, tracking down Korra's green cheeks. I am scared, she whispered. I am so scared of wanting this and having it ripped away. I am scared too. But I would rather be scared with you than safe without you. She closed the distance between them in 2 long strides and pulled him into a crushing embrace. Finn wrapped his arms around her, feeling the strength of her, the solidity, and thought that this was what home was supposed to feel like. Not a place, but a person. They stood like that for a long time, holding each other in the dim barn while the wind howled outside. When they finally pulled apart, Korra was smiling through her tears. You are absolutely insane, she said. Probably. Is that a yes? To what? You have not actually asked me anything. Finn laughed, giddy with relief and terror and joy. Korra Stonehide, will you stay here with me? Not as a bonded servant or a prize won in a card game, but as my partner, my equal, he hesitated, then pushed forward. My wife, if you will have me. Her eyes went wide. You cannot be serious. I am completely serious. I know it is fast, I know it is unconventional, but I also know that I do not want to spend another day without you. And if we are married, the contract is void, remember. You would be free. Truly free, and we could build a life together without anyone having legal power over you. That is the worst marriage proposal I have ever heard, Korra said, but she was grinning now. You are basically asking me to marry you for legal reasons. No, I am asking you to marry me because I love you. The legal benefits are just a bonus. She laughed, the sound bright and surprised. You really love me, even though I am an orc. Even though the world will hate you for it, especially because you are an orc. And I do not care what the world thinks. I only care what you think. Korra cupped his face in her hands, her palms rough and warm. I think you are the best man I have ever met. I think you are kind and brave, and you see me as a person, not a monster. And I think I am falling in love with you too, even though I tried so hard not to. Is that a yes? That is a yes, you absolute fool. I will marry you. Finn kissed her then, or maybe she kissed him. He was not entirely sure. All he knew was that her lips were soft despite the tusks. Her arms were strong around him, and he felt like he was finally where he was supposed to be. They spent the evening planning, giddy and practical by turns. They would need to find someone willing to marry them, which would not be easy. Most priests and magistrates would refuse to perform an interspecies marriage. But Finn remembered hearing about a wandering cleric who lived in the deep woods, a woman who had left organized religion to minister to those the church had forgotten. We will find her, Finn said, however long it takes. And after, when we are married, we build our life. We work the land, we survive together, and we prove to everyone that love does not care about species or prejudice or ancient hatreds. Korra smiled. You make it sound simple. It will not be simple. It will probably be the hardest thing either of us ever does, but we will do it together. That night they sat by the fire, Korra on the floor with her back against Finn's chair, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. They talked about the future, about plans and dreams, and for the first time since his father died, Finn felt true hope. The next morning, they set out to find the wandering cleric. According to rumor, she lived somewhere in the deep woods to the west, moving between camps of outcasts and refugees. It took them 3 days of searching, following vague directions from trappers and woodcutters who eyed Korra with suspicion, but were willing to trade information for some of her preserved meat. They found the cleric in a clearing, tending to a small group of sick travelers. She was an older woman with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes, wearing simple robes that had been mended dozens of times. When she saw them approach, she straightened and studied them with interest. A human and an orc, traveling together by choice. Now that is something you do not see every day. Her voice was warm, curious rather than judgmental. We need your help, Finn said. We want to get married, but no one will perform the ceremony. The cleric, who introduced herself as Mother Iris, listened to their story with patient attention. When they finished, she nodded slowly. I will marry you, but not because you need to dissolve a contract. I will marry you because I can see that you love each other, and love is the only sacred thing left in this broken world. They were married that afternoon in the clearing, with the sick travelers as witnesses. Mother Iris spoke of partnership and courage, of choosing love in the face of hatred, of building bridges where others saw only walls. Finn and Korra exchanged vows they had written themselves, promises to support and cherish and stand together against whatever came. When Mother Iris pronounced them married, she gave them both a knowing smile. You have chosen a difficult path. People will try to tear you apart to make you regret this choice. But if you hold fast to each other, if you remember why you are doing this, you will build something beautiful. They thanked her and began the journey home as husband and wife. The walk back felt different, charged with new meaning. Every step was taking them toward their future, uncertain and challenging but theirs. When they reached the farm as twilight was falling, Finn took Korra's hand. Welcome home, wife. Welcome home, husband. They went inside together, and that night Finn gave Korra the bed while he prepared to sleep on the floor. She stopped him with a hand on his arm. We are married now. We should share the bed. I do not want to assume anything. I know this happened fast. Korra smiled, gentle and shy. I want to share everything with you, including the bed. They lay together that night, wrapped in each other's arms, and Finn thought about all the unlikely chances that had led to this moment. A card game he should never have played, a prize that was not a prize at all but a person deserving of dignity, 3 months that had become a lifetime. I love you, he whispered into the darkness. I love you too, Korra whispered back. Even if you did win me in a card game. I did not win you. I won the chance to know you, and you chose to stay. Best decision I ever made. They made love for the first time that night, tender and exploratory, learning each other's bodies with the same patience they had shown learning each other's minds. Afterward, Korra rested her head on Finn's chest, listening to his heartbeat, and he stroked her hair, marveling at how right this felt. The world outside might not understand, might not accept them, but in this moment, in this small cabin on the edge of the wilderness, they were simply two people who had found each other against all odds and chosen love. The challenges came quickly. Within a week of their return, Harold Dunn made good on his threat, showing up with a mob of angry neighbors. They found Finn and Korra working in the fields, and Harold waved the contract at them. This says she is bonded to you for 3 months. That time is not up yet, Ashford. You cannot just decide the contract is void. Finn straightened Korra beside him. The contract is void because we are married. According to frontier law, marriage dissolves bondage contracts. Married? Harold looked like he had been slapped. You married an orc. I married the woman I love. And if you have a problem with that, you are welcome to take it up with Mother Iris, who performed the ceremony. The mention of Mother Iris gave Harold pause. The wandering cleric was widely respected, even by those who disagreed with the church's politics. If she had sanctioned the marriage, it carried weight. This is unnatural, Old Cather said from the crowd. It goes against everything decent. Korra stepped forward, and Finn felt a surge of pride at the way she held herself, strong and unafraid. What is unnatural about two people choosing to build a life together? What is unnatural about love? I have done nothing to harm any of you. I have lived quietly, worked hard, and asked for nothing. If you cannot accept my presence here, that says more about you than about me. She is right, a new voice said. Everyone turned to see Mother Iris emerging from the tree line, staff in hand. I heard there was trouble brewing and came to see for myself. This marriage is legitimate and blessed. If you attack them, you attack the sanctity of marriage itself. The crowd murmured, uncertain. Harold's face was red with anger, but even he seemed unwilling to challenge Mother Iris directly. This is not over, he finally said, pointing at Finn. You have made your choice, but do not expect any help from us when winter comes hard. We do not need your help, Finn said quietly. We have each other. The mob dispersed, though Finn could see the resentment simmering in their eyes. When they were gone, he turned to Mother Iris. Thank you for coming. How did you know? I keep my ear to the ground. When I heard rumors of trouble, I thought you might need a witness to the legitimacy of your union. She smiled. Besides, I wanted to see how you were faring. They invited her to stay for dinner, and Mother Iris accepted. Over stew and bread, she talked about the other outcasts she ministered to, the refugees and exiles who lived in the margins of society. You are not alone in choosing a difficult path, she told them. There are others who have crossed the boundaries their cultures erected. Some have succeeded in building new lives, others have failed. The difference is always the same, whether they held fast to each other. We will hold fast, Korra said, her hand finding Finn's under the table. I believe you will, Mother Iris said. After she left the next morning, Finn and Korra returned to their work with renewed determination. They knew now that their marriage had not solved all their problems, but it had given them a legal and moral foundation to stand on. They were not bondservant and owner, not prize and winner, but husband and wife, equals in the eyes of law and faith. The autumn work intensified as they raced to prepare for winter. Korra continued to hunt, bringing back deer and wild boar, and they smoked and preserved enough meat to last months. Finn finished the repairs on the barn and reinforced the cabin's roof. Together, they harvested the winter wheat and root vegetables from the southern section, and the yield was better than Finn had dared to hope. One evening, as they were storing the last of the harvest, Korra said, "We are going to make it. We have enough food, enough wood, enough of everything. We are actually going to survive the winter." "We are," Finn agreed. "More than survive. We are going to thrive." She turned to him, her face glowing in the lantern light. "I never thought I would have this. A home, a partner, a future. I spent so long just trying to get through each day. Now I can think about next week, next month, next year. What do you see when you think about next year?" "I see us expanding the farm, maybe getting some chickens or a cow. I see the southern section producing a full harvest. I see us stronger, more established, maybe even accepted by some of the neighbors." She paused, then added shyly, "I see maybe starting a family if that is something you want." Finn felt his heart swell. "I want everything with you. A family, a thriving farm, a life so full it spills over. I want to prove that what we have is real and good and worth fighting for. Then that is what we will build." Winter came on cold and hard, but inside the cabin there was warmth. Finn taught Korra to read and write properly, spending evenings by the fire working through his mother's old teaching books. Korra taught Finn advanced tracking and survival skills, taking him into the forest even in the snow to show him how to read the land. They worked on their crafts, Finn playing his fiddle while Korra carved small figures from wood, a skill she admitted she had learned from her father before he died in battle. On the longest night of winter, they held their own private celebration. Finn played a song his father had loved, and Korra danced to it, her movements graceful and strong. Then they sat together by the fire, wrapped in blankets, and talked about their dreams. "I used to think happiness was something that happened to other people," Korra said. "People with families and clans and places they belonged. I never imagined I could have it." "You deserve it," Finn said. "You deserve every good thing." "So do you. You could have turned me away that first night, told me to run and taken your chances with the law, but you did not. You saw me as a person and treated me with dignity when the world had just finished treating me like property. I did what anyone decent would do. No, you did what a good man would do, and I am grateful every day that you are the one I ended up with." They kissed, slow and deep, and Finn felt the now familiar rush of desire and love and belonging. This was home, this woman in his arms, this shared life they were building together. Spring came gradually, the snow melting to reveal the land they had worked so hard to cultivate. The winter wheat began to sprout, delicate green shoots pushing through the earth, and Finn felt a fierce joy at the sight. They had made it through. Against all odds, despite all opposition, they had survived their first winter together. As the weather warmed, Korra discovered she was pregnant. She told Finn one morning in early spring, her expression a mix of joy and trepidation. "I am with child," she said simply. Finn felt like the ground had dropped out from under him, not with fear but with overwhelming emotion. "A baby! We are going to have a baby, if that is something you want." "I know we never discussed this specifically, and with everything else we are dealing with, a child might be," he silenced her with a kiss. "I want this. I want a family with you. I want to raise a child who grows up knowing they are loved, who never has to choose between their human heritage and their orc heritage because they will honor both." Korra's eyes filled with tears. "It will not be easy. A half-orc child will face prejudice from both sides. Then we will teach them to be strong. We will teach them to be kind. We will teach them that their mixed heritage is not a weakness but a strength, a bridge between two worlds." She hugged him tightly. "How did I get so lucky? I am the lucky one. I played a foolish hand of cards and somehow ended up with you. You did not end up with me like a prize, Finn Ashford. We ended up with each other, and that is different. The pregnancy progressed through the spring and summer, and Finn watched in awe as Korra's body changed. She remained active, insisting on working the fields right up until the final month, and their farm continued to thrive. The winter wheat harvest was exceptional, and they planted additional crops, expanding their operation. Some neighbors, seeing their success and perhaps softened by time, began to cautiously resume contact. Old Cather was the first, showing up one day with a basket of preserved fruits. "I was wrong to judge you," she said stiffly. "My grandson reminded me that holding grudges only poisons your own heart. If you will accept my apology, I would like to resume trading." Korra, heavily pregnant and radiant, smiled. "We would like that very much." Others followed, slowly and tentatively. Not all the neighbors came around. Harold Dunn remained hostile, but enough did that Finn and Korra no longer felt completely isolated. They were building a community, one careful relationship at a time. The baby came on a warm evening in late summer, with Mother Iris attending the birth. Finn held Korra's hand through the long hours of labor, awed by her strength and courage. When the baby finally arrived, squalling and healthy, Finn felt tears streaming down his face. "A boy," Mother Iris announced, placing the baby in Korra's arms. "And he is beautiful." The baby had green-tinted skin, lighter than Korra's but darker than Finn's, with tiny tusks just visible in his mouth and bright blue eyes that looked up at them with infant curiosity. He was perfect, a living symbol of their love. "What should we name him?" Korra asked, exhausted but glowing. Finn thought of his father, of Korra's mother, of all the people who had shaped them. "What about Gareth? It means gentle strength. That is what I hope he has, your strength and my gentleness." "Gareth Ashford," Korra said, testing the name. "I like it, but he should have both our names." Gareth Ashford Stonehide. Perfect. They spent the first weeks of Gareth's life in an exhausted, joyful haze. The baby was healthy and hungry, and Korra proved to be a natural mother, patient and loving. Finn found himself utterly enchanted with his son, spending hours just watching him sleep, marveling at the miracle of his existence. Old Cather came by with a cradle her late husband had built, a peace offering and a blessing. Other neighbors brought gifts: blankets, clothes, jars of preserves. Even Harold Dunn, though he never apologized, stopped making threats. One afternoon, as Finn rocked Gareth while Korra worked in the garden, he thought about how far they had come. A year and a half ago, he had been alone, struggling to survive, playing cards with a stranger out of desperation. Now he had a wife he loved, a son he adored, and a farm that was finally thriving. The journey had been difficult, marked by prejudice and fear and struggle, but they had come through it together. Korra came inside, dirt on her hands and a smile on her face. "The southern section is looking good. We might be able to expand even further next year. We might need to, with an extra mouth to feed." She came over and looked down at their sleeping son. "I never dared to dream I could have this. It felt too big, too impossible." "Nothing is impossible if you are stubborn enough. And if you find the right partner." "I definitely found the right partner, even if he did win me in a card game," Finn laughed. "Are you ever going to let that go?" "Never. It is too good a story. Our son will grow up hearing about how his foolish father played cards with his last coin and won the love of his life." "I did not win you," Finn said seriously, meeting her eyes. "I won the chance to know you, and you chose to stay, and together we built something real." That is the story I want him to know. Not that you were a prize, but that you were always a person deserving of love and respect, and somehow I was lucky enough that you loved me back. Korra kissed him softly. "That is a much better story." As autumn returned, bringing the familiar rhythms of harvest and preparation. Finn reflected on the changes a single year had brought. They had weathered the initial storm of prejudice, built a successful farm, married, and brought a child into the world. It had not been easy, and there were still neighbors who would never accept them, but they had created a life that was rich and full and theirs. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset with Gareth nestled between them, Korra said, "Do you ever regret it? Choosing this path, knowing how hard it would be?" "Never. Not for a single moment, do you?" "Never. I spent so long wandering, never belonging anywhere. Now I have a home, a family, a purpose. I would go through everything again if it meant ending up here with you." Finn took her hand. Threading their fingers together, human and orc joined as seamlessly as their lives had become. "I love you, Korra Ashford Stonehide. Thank you for taking a chance on a foolish man playing cards with his last coin. I love you too, Finn Ashford Stonehide. Thank you for seeing past my green skin and tusks to the person underneath. Thank you for treating me like a partner when the world treated me like property. Thank you for giving me a home." They sat together as the stars came out, their sun sleeping peacefully, their land stretching around them full of promise. The journey had been unlikely, improbable, and often painful, but they had walked it together, and that had made all the difference. In the years that followed, the Ashford Stonehide farm became known throughout the region, not just for its productivity, but for what it represented. Other mixed couples, human and orc and even some other species, began to seek them out, looking for proof that their own relationships could survive in a hostile world. Finn and Korra welcomed them all, sharing their story and their hard-won wisdom. They had more children, 2 daughters with their mother's strength and their father's gentle heart. They expanded the farm until it was one of the most successful in the frontier territories. And they loved each other through it all, through good seasons and bad, through triumphs and setbacks, through every challenge life threw at them. But it all started with a card game, a foolish bet, and 2 people who refused to accept the roles society had assigned them. It started with a man who saw a person where others saw property, and a woman who dared to believe she deserved love. And on quiet evenings, when the work was done and the children were asleep, Finn would sometimes take out that old deck of cards and shuffle them idly. Korra would laugh and remind him that he had terrible luck at cards, and he would agree, saying he had spent all his luck on that one impossible hand. Then she would remind him that it was not luck at all. It was choice. His choice to treat her with dignity, her choice to stay, their choice to build a life together despite every obstacle. Luck might have brought them together, but love and determination had kept them that way. And really, Finn thought as he held his wife close, that was the only story worth telling. Not about a prize won in a card game, but about 2 souls who found each other in the most unlikely circumstances and chose, every single day, to keep choosing each other. That was the legacy they would leave their children, the lesson written into every acre of land they had cultivated together. Love was not something that happened to you like luck or fate. Love was a choice, made over and over, through difficulty and joy, through prejudice and acceptance, through every sunrise and sunset. And it was a choice Finn Ashford and Korra Stonehide had never once regretted making. Their story became legend in the frontier territories, told and retold until it was hard to separate fact from embellishment. But the truth remained, simple and profound. A human and an orc had built a life together when the world said it was impossible, and in doing so, they had proven that love was stronger than hatred, partnership more powerful than prejudice, and family more important than the arbitrary divisions society tried to enforce. The farm prospered for generations. Each new crop a testament to what could grow when you planted seeds of love in soil, nurtured by respect and mutual support. And sometimes, travelers passing through would stop and ask about the unusual family that lived there, the one where human and orc children played together without seeing difference, only siblings. And Finn, growing old beside the woman he had loved since that impossible night when everything changed, would smile and say, "It is simple, really. I spent one night proving she was not a prize, and I have spent every night since proving that I meant it." Korra, her hair now streaked with gray but her eyes still bright with the fire that had first captivated him, would add, "And I spent one night deciding to trust a foolish human with a kind heart, and I have spent every night since being grateful I did." Then they would invite the travelers in for a meal, because that was what you did in the Ashford Stonehide household. You welcomed strangers, you shared what you had, and you lived every day as proof that the world could be better than the one you were born into. All because of a card game, an unlikely win, and two people who refused to let their story be defined by prejudice and circumstance. They wrote their own story instead, one day at a time, one choice at a time, one act of love at a time. And it was a story with a happy ending, the kind that does not come from luck or fate, but from the deliberate daily decision to see each other, respect each other, and love each other without reservation or regret. That was the truth of Finn and Korra, and it was a truth that would endure long after they were gone, carried forward by their children and their children's children, a living reminder that love, real love, could cross any divide and conquer any obstacle. All you had to do was choose it and keep choosing it every single day. And they did, right up to the end, when they were laid to rest together beneath the oak tree where Finn's father was buried, their hands still joined even in death, two souls who had found each other against all odds and never let go. The farm continued, tended by their children and grandchildren, the land rich and productive, the house full of laughter and love. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when the work was done, someone would take out that old deck of cards, the ones from the fateful game, and tell the story of how it all began, not with a prize won but with a partnership chosen, not with ownership claimed but with dignity granted, not with luck but with love, and that, in the end, was the only story that mattered.